What was your biggest takeaway from game one?
Malika, Kevin Durant had not played a game of 5-on-5 full court since April when the Suns got eliminated by the Wolves in the first round of the playoffs. He hadn't been able to do anything at all, really, with Team USA in any meaningful way. He's coming off the bench for the fourth time in his 17-year pro career.
Yeah, it's tough, but Jayson handled it really well. I talked to him today before the game that it may play out this way, just with Kevin coming back and the lineups that I wanted to get to. But that'll change. You know, Jayson's going to play. Every game's going to be different based on matchups. He's a total pro. He's, first team All-NBA 3 years in a row. I felt like an idiot not playing him, but in a 40-minute game, you can't play more than 10. You really can't.
All right, Brian, that was your interview that you had with Steve Kerr when he was talking, of course, about not playing Jayson Tatum in this game. So let's just start right there. I want to get back to Kevin Durant. I know we interrupted you in a minute on that part. But Jayson Tatum, what was your understanding about why we didn't see him take the floor on this really talented team?
Yeah, Malika, I think when you just hear that statement, Jayson Tatum gets benched, doesn't play in the game, it's such a surprising statement, it's hard to comprehend. When you peel back the layer, you could understand it a little bit. Here's what Steve Kerr's thinking was. Serbia is a team that has got very strong big men, led by Nikola Jokic, three-time MVP, and they've got very good guards. They weren't as deep on the wings. So what the Team USA's game plan was to play three centers. Obviously, the starter Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, and Anthony Davis, and then play three guys who could guard point guards, which would be Anthony Edwards, Derek White, and the starter Drew Holiday. Then with Kevin Durant coming back, he just squeezed the playing time for the wings, and they made the evaluation that in a 10-man rotation in a 40-minute game, Tatum didn't fit. Now, I know that sounds strange, but this game plan worked. Everybody that they used in the game actually played extremely well. Maybe the exception is Joel Embiid, but he was being used against Jokic. That's not Tatum's position. If you were going to squeeze Tatum in, it probably would have been instead of Derek White. Derek White was plus 15 in this game, right? 2 steals and a block in his minutes on the court. It worked. And look, this was just game one. There are going to be other games where other star players are not going to fit. This is just the beginning. Because it was the first time through, Tatum gets most of the attention. I think Tatum's okay with it. It was obviously probably a little bit unpleasant for him. Steve Kerr is owning the fact that it's unusual, but I think this is the reality with this team. I get it. I understand why it happened, even if it was awkward.
This is what happens when you have sort of an embarrassment of riches in terms of talent. Bringing in the rest of our panel here, Perk, I want your thoughts on this. This is a team that's just loaded. Do you think that Steve Kerr made a mistake? Did he make the right decision by not playing Tatum even a single minute in this game?
I do. I honestly do. And look, I understand Wendy saying it worked because they did win by 20-plus points, Team USA did. But it would have worked with Jayson Tatum getting Derek White minutes. And again, right, I think of the word sacrifice when it comes down to Team USA. And from what I know about Jayson Tatum, watching him, have a historic run with the Boston Celtics, watching him win the NBA championship, that he's willing to sacrifice. I don't know what Steve Kerr was worried about, but we're talking about a 6'9" guy that really doesn't have a position. If you want him to play the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he could do all of the above and play it at a high level on both ends of the floor. This is a young man that was on the last Olympic team that won the gold medal, was the second best player on that team to Kevin Durant. At the end of the day, when you look at this roster, he's a top 6 player on this squad, and there's no reason in hell that he should be out of the rotation. I don't care what's going on.
I'm right there with you, Perk, because to me it really comes down to communication. If there was this expectation that, okay, maybe these other guys could fulfill the role better, fine, but I think he's capable of defending. I think he's capable of, not doing too much off ball, keeping the ball moving. So if Steve Kerr was able to communicate and say, hey, this is what we expect of guys that we know will probably do this, and Drew Holiday and Derek White, your own teammate, can you do this if we throw you out there? Instead of just saying, oh, this matchup didn't work. I'm glad they won because obviously that is the ultimate mission, but it just is mind-boggling to me how you can't even, when you're up 10, 12, up to like pushing 20 at one point, maybe roll him out there. And I know there's some perception of like, why would you play him 2 minutes in that circumstance? Sure. Is that even worse? At the end of the day, there were opportunities where maybe you could say, hey, if this doesn't go well, we'll pull you out or something like that. Players just want communication on that. And I know that they communicated like there'll be opportunity for you to play in games further, in the future, but it did not sit well with me.
And that's kind of what I heard Steve Kerr say too, was that in the future you will see Jayson Tatum. But what that made me think is, okay, so then who aren't we going to see, right? Because if Jayson Tatum is slotted in, then someone is going to be slotted out of this rotation. And Joel Embiid, he continues to start for Team USA, but he hasn't been his best thus far. So what needs to happen for him to be able to achieve that level, Chiney?
Look, there's a lot of pressure on Joel Embiid right now for Team USA. He was recruited to be that missing piece, that missing link, especially at the center position, which is why we see him, particularly him starting and having that big role. And it's a hard matchup. Your game one against Serbia, Nikola Jokic, the MVP. But the reality is he decided to play for Team USA, I believe, October 5th, 2023. Then you go into the NBA season where he played, I believe, 39 games and obviously missed a lot, came back in the playoffs. And you know that sometimes the rest could have worked to your advantage, especially now looking at what Philly has with Paul George. But still, you made this decision, and I think Team USA is invested in this decision, and that's a lot of pressure on him. So what do they need to see? Him continue to play his way into shape, play his way into a little bit more confidence, but also realize that that number one matchup was pretty difficult. I think we're going to see a better Joel Embiid moving forward, but a lot of eyes will be on him nonetheless.
But also, don't the matchups, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe dictate where we see Joel Embiid moving forward, going back to the idea of, okay, Jayson Tatum, who could we see come out of the rotation more if he's in the rotation, looking at matchups moving forward on Wednesday, perhaps against South Sudan. Is that something where you expect to continue to see Joel start, Brian?
Yes, so South Sudan is a much more athletic, wing-oriented team. That's why Steve Kerr already said today Jayson Tatum is going to be in the lineup for that game. In fact, Jayson Tatum played his best preseason game against South Sudan. He had 9 points in that game last week in London. Joel Embiid only played 12 minutes yesterday. His role is still relatively small. The reason they won by 26 points, guys, is because they hit 18 threes. Of course, your margin for victory is going to be big when you hit 18 or 31 threes or whatever they made. Their game plan had to be to defend. But I do take something to heart, Malika. As I've talked about this today, I'm out here on the front line talking to Steve Kerr, talking to the players.
Yeah.
As I've talked back in the U.S. today, I have Perk and Chiney, two former players, expressing how upsetting this would be. Earlier today on other shows, I had other former players, NFL players and NBA players, expressing how upsetting this would be.
Yeah.
So I understand this is a tough call, but I will say Steve Kerr did come to Jayson Tatum before the game and explain it to him. He may not have liked it, but it didn't surprise him. The way the game played out was the way the game plan happened. And if you're going to make a case for Jayson Tatum to play, you have to pull somebody out. And if you pull out Derek White and just say that's a switch for easy, I just don't agree. Derek White is a completely different defender. His role in this game was extremely positive, plus 15. That is not as simple as just saying that.
And does that help a little bit that you hear beforehand on that?
It does. I understand that, but I also think that if there's an expectation we need you to do X, Y, or Z, give him the opportunity before you say we don't think you can fit that.
Yeah, okay. Totally fair.
I know. I feel like Perk is feeling
Perk's you can feel that from Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with Wendy on that one. I think Jayson Tatum could bring a lot to the table, the same as Derek White. I think he could have been productive or even more productive. I get what you're saying, right? And I don't want to downplay what Derek White brings to the table. I love and respect his game, but Jayson Tatum could provide all that and something else when it comes to his complete offensive package. Here's my thing, right? When I'm thinking about going back to Joel Embiid, when they go back to the Joel Embiid part of things, Joel Embiid, this is a learning thing for him, right? This is a hold yourself accountable moment for Joel Embiid. When you commit to something, especially like playing for Team USA, you don't take that lightly. That means that you prepare. That means you come into shape. And the best thing that's happening for him right now is that iron sharpens iron. So now he's around greatness. He's around Kevin Durant. He's around Steph Curry. He's around LeBron James, And now he's able to be around greatness and see how those guys who are the ultimate professionals do it on a day-to-day basis. So although I get it, right, they're going to work with Joel Embiid. He's going to work his way in the shape. He didn't play that many minutes. I'm glad Wendy pointed that out. 12 minutes. He went out there, did his part, couple hard fouls, and, battle with Jokic. But at the end of the day, he needed to take a page out of Anthony Edwards' book and see how Anthony Edwards is embracing that role of being around greatness, and Joel Embiid needs to follow.
Well, I'm just going to point out one more thing as we continue to consider lineups moving forward. Kevin Durant came off the bench in this game. He was 8 of 9 and finished 8 of 9 from the floor. Will we see him continue to come off the bench for this team, or is that something else that once again we're going to see